Whether you're a seasoned vet of the payments industry or a brand new rookie who just heard the term dual pricing for the first time, you're in the right place. This is the only podcast that shares the strategies and stories behind selling merchant services, all from the perspective of those on the front lines. Welcome to AgentFirst. Welcome back to our latest episode of AgentFirst. If you're watching the video, you'll already identified A, that we're in a new space, which is pretty exciting, and B, that there's more than two of us. So this is, again, we've done a couple of agent interviews. This is our first interview with a not currently an agent, but I'm excited to hear about it.
He's a secret agent.
He's a secret agent, yes. And so, as always, thanks for joining AgentFirst. I'm John Skelly. He's Justin Volrath. And our guest today, it's funny because I know you have an official title, and at some point you can say it if you want to, but we call him Mr. Dejavoo. Larry Roberts is, I think, a national sales executive, exactly. And he is kind of the guy that we go to whenever we're looking at a merchant that needs a Dejavoo system. I know a lot of our agents have had great experiences, not only with you, but with the products. But today is really less about kind of your day job and more about you.
All right.
And so I think as we get started, probably the easiest thing to do is just, people are going to pick up that you're from Texas pretty quickly. But tell us your story about kind of how you got started in the industry and maybe all the way to how you ended up where you are today.
Well, let's be clear, before we get any further, his real title is the Bear.
That is fair.
Yes. Always the Bear.
Bear.
Yeah,
Yes.
Lair Bear, the Bear, for sure.
Okay.
Thanks for correcting.
I go by a lot of different nicknames. But so it's kind of an interesting story. I started out, right out of college just doing retail. I worked for one of the major retailers, Neiman Marcus, for like 14 years after college. And then kind of got to a point where I'd made as much money as I could tell I was ever going to make in retail and decided I was going to start doing some other stuff. So I got into the home mortgage businesses, and that was when the big boom happened. And then all of a sudden the big crash happened. I decided, well, let's try something else. So then, probably 15 years ago, I answered an ad, for a sales job. And basically, at the time, I knew there was credit cards, and I knew you used them to pay stuff. That's all I knew.
Right.
And so I go in, interview, and of course, using sales ability, I can do this, and then go get the job, of course. And they said, well, you're going to have training starting, Monday, whatever. So I was like, okay, over the weekend thinking about it. And then went in on Monday, did a little training. Basically the training back then was, you make phone calls, you set appointments, and you go close deals. Okay, now go. And I was like,
here's your phone. Here's your phone book.
Here's
right?
your phone book. Yeah, the yellow pages back in the day.
It hasn't changed much in 15 years.
I know, but it was very interesting. And so I did that for 2 or 3 days, trying to figure out, my script and all that. And then, probably the 4th day on like a Thursday, I went home for lunch, and I laid on the couch and I went, do I really want to go back to this job that I have just called and everybody just says, no. And I'm like, I don't know if I do. And then all of a sudden my hiring manager calls me, are you coming back from lunch? And I paused and thought, and I went, yeah, I guess I will, So I went back, and that day got an appointment, 3-location motorcycle shop.
Oh, wow.
Made about $8,000 on that deal. And I'm like, oh, okay, I can do this. And that was kind of how it all started. And then I was working for a company out of Fort Worth, First American Payments. And I worked as a salesperson for about 1.5 years, built up some residual and that type thing. And then the manager that had hired me basically was asked to leave, and they asked me if I would take over his job. And basically I started running the office. So I ran the office of about 15 to 20 sales reps, did that for a while. And then the corporate office, my buddy Sean and Ross called me and goes, man, you need to come over here and work with us. So went and did that for a couple of years, and then kind of got to the point where I was like, well, maybe there's something else out there. And then North American bank card said, we'll offer you more money. Let's go. So I went and did that for a while. And then I went to TSYS, and then TSYS got bought out. And then I ended up doing another company that does equipment that Justin and Jon probably know of. And then hit with Dejavoo. And just ever since, it's been Dejavoo nonstop.
That's awesome.
You know, and have met these guys at shows and, you know, and just built a relationship. I've been out here to visit twice and I always enjoyed it. So it's been fun.
It was our buddy Ross that actually introduced us.
Yes.
At the very first show that I'd attended as Pay Compass, actually.
Yep.
When it was the SEAA in Florida, right after COVID. It felt so weird.
It was so
because
weird.
nobody was wearing masks at all, and it was like right after, you know, COVID. You're like, whoa, are we allowed to be here? You know, it felt so
it was
so weird
good.
and strange. That's how it went. So it's kind of funny. So you talk about that moment in laying there on the couch, and I think many of us have had that moment.
For sure.
Yeah, the couch moment. That's a great way to call it. Or the bed moment. There,
Yeah,
it's like,
do I really want
yeah,
to do this?
yeah. That's kind of crazy because you have that. What do you think your life would have been like if you had not gone back? What do you
have
what
no
path?
idea.
Some other
You know,
sales role? Or something?
It would have been something sales, but it wouldn't have been near as enjoyable because I think once you get in this industry, you're in it. I mean, it's hard to get out, you know, and just I've tried a lot of different sales jobs, and I think this just is one of those things that, you know, once you figure it out, which you never figure it out, but once you figure it out, it's something that's in your blood then, you know, it's just, and you know this for sure, you know, it's hard to do anything else after this. So
once so obviously you've been in sales role, you've been in sales management role. Now you're in sales, but kind of on the other side, right? You're selling to the salespeople. Which of them is your favorite? And I'm not trying to get you talked out of a job.
No, not at all. No, I mean, I've liked them all. I think, you know, running the sales office was the most challenging because you're dealing with a lot of different personalities and trying to teach them how to do the job, and each one of them probably is going to do it differently. So it's, you know, it's a little different, but I enjoyed it because it was something different every day. And every day you're going on different appointments and you're going with different people and you're trying to figure out their personalities and how they sell and, you know, that kind of thing. But now being an individual contributor, basically on a good team, I mean, we have, you know, probably 8 to 10 salespeople at any time that are going after ISOs like I do, but we all work together really well.
Right.
So I really enjoy this, and I like getting to deal with the ISOs like Pay Compass and, you know, the Ross Secure Bank Card and all of them. And so I think right now I'm in a good spot.
That's great.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So your background was, I mean, you did sales a lot. You were frontline sales. I mean, that's all. Yeah, but in the merchant, specifically the merchant services, you did a lot of sales. I know you worked with multiple companies. You talked about how has that helped you in selling now equipment? I assume there's got to be you have a big advantage over maybe other people that have, you know, just went straight into selling equipment and maybe didn't have their hands dirty, so to speak.
Well, I think, you know, and when I first started out, like I talked about earlier today, is, you know, Narit 2085s were a big deal, or VX 520s, or what was it, T7
pluses, baby,
or even knuckle busters. You know, I had a few of those when
we went from the carbon, the 2 slips of paper to the 1 slip. Oh my gosh, that was a big day.
Oh, big deal. Yeah. So, you know, I think just having to deal with, and I used to go do installs, you know, because I mean, when I first started selling, you did everything. You signed the paperwork, you went and did the install, you were their customer. I mean, still the same, I'm sure, but I got to deal with a lot of different equipment and a lot of different, and I would see the good and the bad, and you know, and they all have that. But I just think it's been a lot easier for me to get into the sales of the equipment because I've had to do it myself, and I know all the pain points.
Were you, when you started, faxing in deals or mailing them, or?
No, we actually would do paper and bring them in, and then
because you were in person,
we were in person. We actually had an office, you know, and that was the thing. It was you know, we were there at 8 in the morning and we would do what's called call jams until noon. You know, every hour you had to make so many calls, and then you'd take a 5-minute break and you'd come back and do that. And, you know, you're supposed to set 3 appointments or 4 appointments a day, run 2, so there was a system.
Always.
And, it works pretty well if you can get somebody to cooperate.
Stick with it. Yeah, that's the hard part. That's the hard part for sure.
Yeah, definitely. But, those 1 or 2 really good deals just keep the juices flowing. And you're like, okay, it can be done.
So obviously, I know you said you started in retail and for a while. Has sales been, was it something you grew up with or something family did?
I think, my father was a stockbroker and he actually retired at 40.
Okay.
He had done well enough in Dallas as a stockbroker, and we moved to a little small town outside of Temple called Cameron. And he had a farm there and basically branched and did that. And he had a greenhouse business as well. And I just growing up always was out doing some sort of sales. I mean, I would, whatever it was in sales. And I actually, started off like when I was 16, we had a city pool in this little town that I was in, and you could rent it for the summer and run it as a business. And I did that and made a lot of money as a kid.
Wow.
So it was like,
that's a cool concept.
Yeah.
That's great.
They would, it was kind of like they would see who the best bidder was or whatever, and then you could get that. And so I did it one summer, and then going through college, I worked for a cable company where you would go out door to door and basically try to get people to sign up for cable. I mean, I did great at that. I was like, okay, this sales thing's all right. So that's kind of the way I got into sales, just all the way through.
Well, you definitely got the right attitude for it. I mean, I know you're a very shy guy.
I'm very shy.
Very shy.
You're introvert. Yeah.
I can see. You're not one of those guys that, there's a lot of people that are in sales that kind of fell into it. Like you ended up in it, but it's been in your blood since you were young. I can tell for sure.
Definitely.
Yeah, definitely.
I have no trouble talking to people.
Well, it's funny. We had dinner together last night, which is really when this episode should have started.
Yeah,
I feel like we've lost a lot. But it's funny. One of the things that you were saying at dinner is that a lot of people in this industry maybe went to college or decided college wasn't for them, but rarely did they get a degree in something that really made sense in this. And so I was just, tell me a little bit more about that, because I thought it was a great insight.
Well, what we were talking about at dinner was, one of the guys in the industry had his history degree. Yeah. Okay. How's that going to help? Well, it'll help. So I just think in this industry, you just notice that a lot of people, probably just like me, had no clue what they were getting into when they got into it. And then again, you kind of figure it out as you go. And I think there's a lot of things to learn. And when I was running an office, I told him, I go, you're going to learn something new every day, and you're never going to learn it all. Because as soon as you learn it all, it changes. And, and that's the way it is in this industry. And same thing with the equipment I'm selling now. As soon as you think you've got it figured out, we've got something new coming out that, there's a new bell and a whistle that's going. So.
Right. Is there, so you've been doing this for a while.
Yeah.
We need to talk about how many years.
Just a few.
But you've obviously seen a lot of changes in the industry, right? You've seen where it started to get, T7 pluses and carbon paper and all that sort of stuff to today. What do you think is like one of the most, the largest improvements in the industry you've seen over that time? I mean, there's a lot of changes. We're seeing, dual pricing and Ethernet even terminals are one of the things that we loved, when that came out. That was a big deal. Exactly. Are there some other things maybe that you see as like, wow, I wish I had that back when I was starting selling?
Just think about what I was showing y'all earlier on the tap on phone. I mean, who would have ever thought that, your cell phone, or who would have thought cell phones, but your cell phone, you could just use that as a credit card terminal. And, and I think the innovations with the adding, all the e-commerce and all the, omni-channel stuff, that's something 5 years ago wouldn't have thought about, and 10 years ago you definitely didn't. So and then dial-up terminals, thank God they've gone away. But remember trying to do a download on a T7 Plus?
Well, I remember we had to wait for the the Veriphones. We had to wait for the asterisks to appear.
All the asterisks.
You get 10 of them, and you get to 9, and then you're just like, come on, baby.
And then it would start.
Their phone would ring or something and interrupt the whole download.
Oh, I'm telling you, So there's been a lot of. I think the technological side of this has been really the the biggest change and the best change. And and also what we've talked about is all the mergings together. A lot of that's happened, and it's definitely changed the landscape. But it's all good.
Yeah. So your role in product, obviously, I think you're pretty in touch with what merchant needs are, and maybe how those have changed. Have you seen kind of a change in the things that matter to merchants, or the things that they're focused on, or
I
such?
think so. I think, there's definitely, it used to just be, I just want a credit card machine that runs the credit card and that's it. And I don't care about anything else. And I think now, with the adoption of the dual pricing and the surcharging and all the different things that can be done, and the send payment links and the, invoicing and all of that, that's something that wasn't thought of that long ago. So yeah, I definitely see a big change in the industry that way, and it's for the positive.
Do you see anything? I mean, and this is obviously where you put on your crystal ball and put on your special hat and everything, but do you see anything coming up that and not specifically with Dejavoo, but just in general in the industry, like, man, it'd be really cool if we had X or something like that?
Gosh, that's a really hard question.
I know it's a tough one.
But and I think going to all these regional shows like we do, you start seeing things that you're like, well, that's very interesting. I didn't think of that.
Right.
But right now, off the top of my head, I can't think of just one. But there's some things that are definitely coming out.
Absolutely. I think we're going to be, at that point where we're just not going to have credit card terminals or credit cards. All you're just going to have your hand, and you're going to shake somebody's hand, and like we're going to implant it in our palms here at birth.
Well, they did the Bluetooth rings at the Olympics a couple of years ago.
Yes.
Yeah,
and that's how they stored everything on the rings. Yeah, I can see that.
Wearables, I think, are the big thing coming.
I think so too.
That's definitely a big thing.
And the younger generation, my daughter's age and probably younger, they all use the Apple Pay for everything.
Absolutely.
So, and that's great. It's probably way, way more secure. And, everybody has their phone with them all the time. So just boom. So I think that's another thing that's really taken off, it's just the way to pay, and not a physical card as much anymore.
The digital wallets.
Wallets.
For sure. Yeah.
And then, we talked about it a little earlier too. There's all these applications that you can pay with your crypto or your Venmo or your PayPal or all these different things. So all that's, something new, and it's definitely taken off.
So if we were, it's funny, you talked about the couch moment, and I think everybody's had those, right? Sales or not, but certainly in sales.
Yeah.
If
sometimes in sales, it's like weekly.
That's true.
That's true.
So imagine that whoever's listening to us talking right now is doing exactly that, right? They just finished their lunch break. They're on the sofa. They're trying to decide if they're going to get back out there or not. Now with the benefit of hindsight and looking back on kind of what your career has become, what would you say to them? What would be the message?
I think the main thing is just don't give up. Go back, give it one more try. Just keep going, and then if it just doesn't work out, maybe it just doesn't work out for you. But, don't ever wonder if it should have, maybe if I would have gone back and made that one more phone call, or, even that day on that Thursday, I think it was probably 4:59 when I made that final call.
Right.
And the guy answered and said, yeah, come on out. And I'm like, what? And so you just don't know. I could have left 5 minutes early and that wouldn't have happened at all. And, I might be flipping burgers. Who knows? So probably eating burgers, but I don't know about flipping them. But,
yeah. Are you, as you, and kind of taking that same sort of thing of advice you'd give to somebody else who's going through that, even rewind further back to somebody who's thinking about getting into this industry in general, like maybe they're in sales, something else, and they're thinking like, man, maybe this merchant, what would you say to that person?
I think, and again, this is kind of going back to what I said about the numbers game. This is one of those things that if you want to get into it, you've got to be able to take rejection, which is any sales. But this is especially because with this industry, there's a lot of things that have happened in the past that people hold on to. And so you coming in there might not get the best reception, but I think if you can just play that numbers game, do as many calls, as many walk-ins, as many, I think the main thing that you really want to do, and I always told my sales reps this, is go after your friends and family first. People that are going to let you in, and that way you can get your your pitch or your sales, and learn as you're dealing with somebody that actually trusts you already, and and you can kind of build it from there.
Right. Somebody that'll say, I'll
give
forgive
you a
you if you
chance.
mess up.
Yeah,
Exactly. It doesn't need to be perfect.
No, exactly.
I remember when we had the conversation with Ira a few weeks ago, and him just talking about that kind of rush of closing a deal, right? And
yes,
and
incredible,
and how it never really goes away, but so much of that is what kind of fuels. Do you? Again, we don't want to talk about the specific number of how long you've been in the industry, but do you still feel that when you bring a new ISO on? Or
I mean, we were talking, yesterday at dinner about one, and it just so happened I got up this morning and there's an email from this ISO that we were talking about and said, I'm ready to go. And I've been beating on you forever. And,
I think I get some of that commission.
Yeah,
I think I should get some commission. I brought it up.
I've had to feed you twice. That's a lot.
That's fair.
That's fair. That's fair.
The so what kind of things, obviously payments is a lot of this, but just Larry is the person. Like, where, what do you get your happiness and kind of your fulfillment from?
I mean,
outside of work
it's very hard for me to be happy.
Yeah.
No, I tell you, I enjoy being around people. I enjoy playing a little golf on the weekends. Me and my wife go on our date nights during the week, and enjoy my daughter. She just got married about a year ago, and I love her and her son, my son-in-law, and we go visit them. They live in Philadelphia, so that's fun. And just, getting to travel out here to see y'all, bring the rain with me and all that. So,
no joke.
But yeah, just anything enjoyable. I don't like being sad. So.
I don't think I've ever seen a sad Larry Roberts.
I don't get sad very often.
That's for darn sure. So when you're looking at the day-to-day activities of what you do, obviously, you're calling on ISO, and it's a whole other world. I think maybe some of our listeners don't understand is like, so in the world of Larry works for a equipment provider, that manufactures devices and sells them then to ISOs. What is the best way for you to maybe get somebody to utilize your devices? I mean, it's a different sale than what the guys that are listening to this maybe are merchant services salespeople. They're walking into a merchant. You're not walking to a merchant saying, "Hey, here's use my terminal," but instead you're having to work with ISOs and sales agents out there. Yeah. What's the best way you found to get them there?
Yeah, I think, like what we did this morning, a Zoom meeting where you can show off all the products and maybe show them what they can benefit from using your equipment to sell a deal. And that's the main thing that I am trying to get across to them, is that we have the solution. You just need to go out and, present it. And once it's presented and they have it, you're going to have a very happy client, and they're going to stay with you. What we call a sticky product, because once they're with you and they're liking everything about it, they're not going to be looking around to see what else is out there. They're going to be happy with you. So that's my day to day. I'm trying to train up these ISOs to go out and present it, because as you know, people get very set in their ways. They just want to do what they do, and they don't really want to, go out of their way. But that's kind of my deal, is to try to get them to definitely push, things that we're offering, and, and get out there and sell.
I'll say that it's definitely, and not just your company, but some other companies out there as well that have helped, and not just in payment terminals, but in technology for the payment space, that has revolutionized the approach to selling over the last few years. I'd say the last 5 years specifically, where it's not driven by the manufacturer, but it's now being driven by the demand of the agents and the demand of the merchants, which is refreshing to see and awesome to see. Where it's, when we started, and I'm not going to name names of companies, but it was take it or leave it. This is how it works. Go pound sand if you don't like it. And now when companies don't, we've all seen this over the last few years, especially around COVID time, where companies had struggles around that when they didn't adapt quickly enough to the demands, because they are shifting fast. So it's really cool to see. And I think that's a probably a really unique part of your approach, is that, being nimble enough to adapt to the market space or go away like the dinosaurs, right?
Exactly. Well, and I think that's, to toot our own horn, the Dejavoo is very nimble. They adapt, and they also take suggestions very well. Anything that is wanted, we try to adapt and get in, especially, with this new system with the gateway. We have a gateway team, and they take suggestions and they improve all the time. We have sprints where we're putting out new features or fixing anything that needed to be fixed. So I think that's something that you didn't always have. And also, I think that's helped all the sales reps out there on not just selling on price, not the race to zero like we were, and this dual pricing and this surcharging and all these type things. They've been really good for the industry. And of course, I'm starting to see they're taking advantage of that too. And they're starting to, do things that it's like, okay, guys, you're going back to where we were. Let's don't do that. But I think all that has been really helpful in the industry as well. So.
Well, Larry, I appreciate you taking the time today. It was
awesome.
It's a guy that I know our paths have crossed, and I've just known you as Lair Bear, and so it was nice to learn about the Texan behind the bit, right?
Right.
The anything else that kind of you want to share? I want to make sure that I give you a chance.
I think we've covered a lot. It's been good. I enjoyed this. This is fun.
We appreciate you being here, Larry, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, thanks for sharing your story and kind of your perspective, and it's fun. You're our first non-agent, or although I guess you were an agent. So
some point.
I definitely carried a bag, as they say.
For sure.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much. Thanks again for listening to Agent First, and I will see you next time.
Awesome.